Hi everybody, welcome to Stormdance Television. When we talk about what makes a great judge, we usually think of knowledge, understanding styles, techniques and formats. But there's something deeper, often overlooked, that separates a good judge from a great one. And that is disposition. Disposition means your mental habits, how you approach judgment itself. You can know all the rules and still be biased. You can memorize categories and still lack clarity. You can have years of experience and still fall into tunnel vision or favoritism. The most reliable judges are not just informed, they are open-minded, which means they are willing to consider unfamiliar styles and concepts. They are truth-seeking, even when it challenges their own tastes. They are fair-minded, able to evaluate dancers they don't personally relate to. And they are reflective, aware that their own impression can be wrong. When we judge battles, we use a direct comparison format, which means we don't rely on fixed standards. We rely on our ability to perceive difference fairly and clearly. That requires more than skill. It requires discipline, humility, and courage. So if you want to grow as a judge, you should ask yourself during a contest, am I open to being surprised? Do I resist my biases? Do I stay present and sharp the whole way through? Great judging starts not with technique, but with character, and that's exactly what your disposition shapes. Every single time you make a call. Once we understand that judgment is shaped not just by knowledge, but by mindset, the next question should be, can we develop these dispositions? And the answer is, of course, yes. One of the most respected tools in this field is the California Critical Thinking Disposition Inventory. To put it short, CCTDI. It's developed by Peter Fascioni and his team. It identifies 7 key mental habits that support critical thinking. What makes it valuable is that it doesn't just name ideal traits, it offers a structured ways to A. reflect on, B. to assess, and C. improve the kind of thinking that leads to fair and consistent decisions, especially in situations where performers are improvising and artistry is of great importance, like in dance battles. So in order to support judges in developing the right mindset, I have created a tailored version of the CCTDI disposition list. It keeps the original 7 dispositions, but adapts the language, examples, and focus to reflect the specific demands of direct comparison judging. Unlike rigid scoring systems, direct comparison requires judges to make nuanced decisions under pressure, often across vastly different concepts and expressions, and that demands mental clarity, integrity, and adaptability. This adapted CCTDI list helps judges to reflect on their thinking habits, to identify biases and blind spots, and to strengthen mental dispositions that support fair and self-aware judgments. By connecting established research with real-world challenges in the dance scene, this model aims to professionalize judging without losing its intuitive and artistic core. It is important to say that the following 7 dispositions are not criteria. They are habits of thought that help you make reliable decisions when evaluating dancers. In situations where no checklist can fully capture what happens on the dance floor, these dispositions help you stay focused, fair and consistent without relying on personal preference or assumptions. They sharpen your awareness, reduce bias, and support decisions that are both intuitive and explainable. Let's go through them one by one. We begin with the first disposition, truth-seeking. Or as we say in hip-hop, stay real. In judging, truth-seeking means committing to what's actually happening in front of you. Not what you expected, not what might usually win, and definitely not what you personally prefer. It's about focusing on the performance, not the dancer and its reputation, not the hype, not the history. This can sound obvious, but in practice it's one of the hardest things to do, because we all have preferences. We may have certain ideas of what should win. A truth-seeking judge is someone who can set that aside and stay present battle after battle, round after round. That means watching each performance with fresh eyes without letting past impressions, positive or negative, interfere with your current judgment. It means resisting the pressure to follow trends or reward the familiar. And it means having the courage to give credit where it's due. Truth-seeking also means not filling in gaps. Don't assume, don't judge what you think a dancer was going for. Don't reward intention, reward execution. In a direct comparison system, your job is to recognize and evaluate what was actually delivered in real time by both sides. That requires clarity, honesty, and discipline. You're not judging potential, you're not judging history. You're judging this round right now, so stay in the moment, be real. That's what truth-seeking looks like in practice. It's the foundation of fair comparison. The second key disposition is open-mindedness. Open-mindedness is based on the will to consider different approaches, unfamiliar concepts, and unexpected ideas without shutting down or falling back on your own preferences. As a judge, you're going to see dancers who bring in influences that challenge your definition of the form. An open-minded judge doesn't just tolerate difference, they engage with it. They ask, what is the dancer trying to express? How does it work within the context of the battle? This disposition is especially important in hip-hop and related dance cultures, where innovation is not just accepted, it's expected. If a judge closes off to new ideas or holds on to narrow definitions of what's correct, they might not just miss the moment, worse, they risk holding the culture back. Open-mindedness is about expanding your lens. It's about recognizing that excellence can take many forms, even forms we haven't seen before. When comparing dancers directly, it's your responsibility to be fair across all differences. You're not there to judge who fits your idea of the dance style best. You're there to evaluate who demonstrated the art better, whether in physical, artistic, or interpretative quality, based on what was actually presented. So stay open, let each dancer show what they are about. And don't be too quick to decide what you think the dance is supposed to look like. Open-mindedness keeps judgment flexible, honest, and is rooted in curiosity rather than control. Now here's the third disposition, inquisitiveness. Inquisitiveness is the internal drive to keep learning, not out of obligation, but out of genuine intellectual curiosity. It's the disposition that keeps a judge engaged long after they've mastered the basics. And here I'm talking about the basics of the dance style and the basics of judging. It is the impulse to explore new movement vocabulary, to ask deeper questions, and to seek understanding beyond what is already familiar or comfortable. In the context of dance judging, inquisitiveness means never settling into a routine. It means refusing to let your knowledge become static. The dance style evolves. Dancers innovate, new aesthetics emerge. And the inquisitive judge welcomes this, not as a threat to their authority, but as an opportunity to grow. This disposition also extends to unfamiliar ways of expression or stylistic references that may appear in a battle. An inquisitive judge doesn't dismiss what they don't understand. Instead, they take note, they investigate, they ask, where does this come from? What is being expressed here? How can I expand my understanding to evaluate this more fairly next time? Inquisitiveness really guards against complacency. It challenges the judge to stay present, not only during the battle, but in their ongoing development. It resists the comfort of expertise and leans into the responsibility of continuous learning. And perhaps most importantly, inquisitiveness cultivates respect. Respect for the depth of the culture, for the plurality of its expressions, and for the never-ending process of becoming more fluent as a judge, not only in what you know, but in how you learn. Now, by looking at inquisitiveness alone as one of the original 7 dispositions from the CCTDI, I somehow realized that particularly for dance judges, it would work in their favor to either add another disposition here or integrate it into inquisitiveness. An important part is missing here that we should stress on a bit, and it is what I call fair-mindedness. So fair-mindedness is the discipline of applying the same standards of judgment to all dancers, regardless of personal preferences, style, background, or affiliation. And if we don't insert it here, it is otherwise not well represented. So fair-mindedness is the deliberate effort to suspend bias, especially when evaluating individuals who differ from oneself or differ from the dominant norms within the scene. In the context of judging battles, this means resisting the pull of familiarity, loyalty, reputation, or shared aesthetics. It requires a conscious commitment to evaluate each dancer on equal footing, based solely on what is presented within the exchange. A fair-minded judge does not simply strive to treat everyone the same. Rather, they exercise the intellectual discipline to recognize how personal affiliations, stylistic leanings, or cultural expectations might distort their perception, and then actively compensate for those distortions. Again, this disposition becomes especially vital when we use a direct comparison approach. Because here, one is not applying fixed scores to any isolated performances, but weighing two dances against one another. It is precisely in such moments where impressions can form quickly and subtle preferences can intrude or creep into one's mind that fair-mindedness serves as a stabilizing force here. It safeguards the integrity of the decision by ensuring that both dancers are granted the same degree of attention, patience, and interpretative generosity. In practical terms, fair-mindedness means asking, did I invest the same focus in both performances? Am I holding one dancer to a higher standard, consciously or unconsciously? Or also, would I value this approach equally if it came from someone else? This disposition does not eliminate subjectivity, but it disciplines it. It demands that the subjective act of judgment remain anchored in fairness, self-awareness, and responsibility. The next disposition is analyticity. Analyticity is the habit of seeking clarity, of wanting to understand not just what you're perceiving, but why it stands out. It's the drive to break down your impressions into its components, to examine the structure or what you've seen, and to understand what made it effective, impactful, or sometimes lacking. In the context of judging, analyticity is what allows you to move beyond vague impressions like dope, powerful, stylish, fresh, it had flavor, style, or it had more soul, or any other ambiguous term, and instead you should ask yourself, what exactly gave me that impression? And find proper wording for it. It should delve into a more structured and therefore more objective approach. Here's where the threefold comes into play and helps you to structure your thoughts a lot better. Using the three research categories of physical, artistic, and interpretive qualities with their domains and all subdomains give you a clear overview. And then, you're not just simply watching, you're weighing. So again, in order to weigh two dancers fairly, you need to be able to articulate, at least internally, the specific qualities that led to your decision. Ultimately, analyticity gives shape to your intuition. It allows you to move from a feeling to a form. Without analyticity, judges rely on instinct alone. And while instinct has its place, it can easily be swayed by surface impressions or crowd energy. Analyticity helps you stay grounded. It keeps your attention focused on the elements that matter. And again, those are rooted in physical, artistic, and interpretative quality. It's also the key to consistency. If you can analyze your own perception, you can cross-check it, refine it, and replicate it under pressure. You're not just deciding, you're understanding why you decided. In that sense, analyticity is not cold dissection. It is a form of respect. Respect for the dancer's craft and respect for your own responsibility as a judge. We now come to the fifth disposition, systematicity. Systematicity refers to the habit of approaching judgment in an organized, methodical way. It is the ability to maintain focus, to follow a clear line of reasoning, and to avoid jumping to conclusions based on first impressions of fragmented moments. In the setting of a dance battle, especially since we are using direct comparison, systematicity is what allows you to track both dances across multiple dimensions without becoming overwhelmed or distracted. It is the mental structure that holds your attention in place while your perception moves between physical, artistic, and interpretive qualities. A systematic judge doesn't rush to a verdict. They observe, compare, and adjust their impression over time. They understand that a battle is not a moment, it is a progression. And in that progression, different aspects come forward. Systematicity helps the judge stay with the process, to watch, assess, and reassess without losing coherence or giving in to mental shortcuts. This disposition is particularly important when rounds are close, when the differences in qualities are not really easily to detect. In such cases, it's tempting to seize on a single strong moment or maybe fall back on vague overall impressions. But systematicity demands more. It requires you to hold multiple aspects in balance and to structure your decision in a way that it remains stable under scrutiny. We can do that best by using a round-for-round judging system to avoid cognitive overload. And let us be clear, systematicity is not rigidity. It is not applying fixed formulas or pre-decided weights. It is about being internally ordered in your thinking so that your judgment remains consistent, not because it follows a script, but because it follows a process. At its core, systematicity is the discipline of engaging with your judgment in a deliberate and structured way. It means resisting the temptation to make quick instinctive calls, and instead taking the time to observe, compare, and reflect before reaching a conclusion. You're not simply reacting, you're reasoning. And as a judge, that discipline is not optional. It is part of the responsibility you carry. Every decision you make affects not only the outcome of the battle, but the perception of fairness and legitimacy in the scene as a whole. The dancers deserve more than an impression. They deserve a decision that has been thought through with care and precision. The sixth disposition is critical thinking confidence. This refers to the trust you place in your own ability to reason clearly and make sound judgments, even under pressure and even when the decision is not obvious. It is definitely not about arrogance or stubbornness. On the contrary, it is the quiet assurance that your thinking process is grounded and that you can rely on it when it matters the most. Judging a dance battle often places you in ambiguous, high-stakes situations. You may be faced with very different approaches while watching the contestants, absolutely strong in their own way. You may feel the tension of a crowd, expecting a certain outcome, or the weight of a dancer's reputation pressing against your own impression. In such moments, critical thinking confidence is what allows you to stay centered. It is the ability to say, I have observed closely, I have compared carefully, I understand why I'm making this decision, and I can stand behind it. This kind of confidence is not innate, it is cultivated. It grows through experience, through reflection, and through a consistent effort to refine your perceptual and analytical habits. It is built each time you resist the pressure to follow the crowd and instead trust the integrity of your own observation. At the same time, true confidence does not reject doubt. It knows the difference between thoughtful uncertainty and indecision. It allows room for reflection, for revision, and even for admitting when a judgment was too close to call. But it does not collapse under the weight of ambiguity. In the end, critical thinking confidence is the foundation for credible judgments. If you do not trust your own process, others will struggle to trust your decisions. Trust me on that. And that trust is the cornerstone of your role as a judge. The seventh and the final disposition is maturity of judgment. This is the capacity to tolerate complexity, to navigate ambiguity, to make thoughtful decisions even when no option is entirely clear or ideal. It reflects on understanding that in many cases, especially in high-level battles, there is no perfect answer, no simple metric, and no universally applicable frame of reference. Maturity of judgment is what allows a judge to remain composed when faced with a close round or a difficult stylistic contrast. It is the ability to weigh competing qualities. There may be rounds where one dancer demonstrates greater physical quality, while the other excels in interpretive or artistic aspects. In such cases, maturity of judgment means taking time to reflect, to allow the comparison to unfold, and to reach a decision that is not rushed, not arbitrary, but grounded in careful observation across all dimensions. This disposition also includes the humility to recognize that every judgment exists within limits. The limit of time, the limit of perspective, and the limit of the human eye and ear. A mature judge does not pretend to be infallible, but also does not hide behind indecision. They take responsibility for the call, knowing that no decision is ever made in a vacuum, and yet still must be made. There will be moments when the decision is not immediate and the decision process deserves more depth. In those moments, maturity means allowing the decision to unfold, not forcing it, but letting it clarify as you move through each layer, physical, artistic, and interpretive. Maturity of judgment is what tempers confidence with reflection. It is what allows intuition and analysis to coexist. And ultimately, it is what elevates judgment from a reaction to a deliberate, responsible act. So here you have the 7 CCTDI dispositions broken down for you so you could become a better judge. In the end, in our dance cultures, we really need to become aware that judging is not only a matter of knowledge. It is to a very huge part a matter of disposition. The ability to evaluate fairly, consistently, and responsibly does not arise from experience alone, but from deliberate self-reflection and disciplined mental habits. This is why judge training is essential, not to prescribe what to think, but to sharpen how we think. By becoming aware of our own dispositions, we don't eliminate subjectivity, we anchor it. We learn to hold our impressions with greater clarity, to question our instincts without losing confidence, and to make decisions that honor both the dancer and the culture. That judge's training is not about control, it's about accountability. And a judge who takes that seriously earns something more valuable than authority. They earn trust and respect. I hope to see you soon. Peace.